about this is, though, it goes through phases where it's not always exactly the same. I mean, this is an average year right here, with cold water out South America and much warmer water in the western Pacific west of the date line out near Indonesia. But it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes the water over here warms up a whole lot, and it's still warm over here. So in this situation, there's a lot more orange and red over there overall than there is here. So this window is called the Pacific Warm Pool. The Pacific Warm Pool warms up during these kinds of events, and we call these El Nino. I have a song that I sing, and I often bring my guitar about El Nino. But basically, an El Nino produces weather extremes all over the world. And in the Northwest, we tend to get our driest and mildest winters during an El Nino. The one in the middle is kind of average, and then the one at the top is called a La Nina, the opposite of El Nino. And notice there's a lot more blue here. And the overall temperature in that window in the Pacific Warm Pool is lower during La Nina. And La Ninas tend to give us our coolest and wettest winters. In Southern California, it's just the opposite. El Nino, we get dry and mild. They get wet during El Ninos. During La Ninas, we get wet, they get dry. It's just a flip-flop back and forth. But it produces weather extremes not just in Southern California, but all over the world. Literally, every continent is affected by this. This, to me, is the driver that drives everything. And this is the proof. This is actually, if I could have one graph, this is the one I would have, because I think this is the smoking gun, and it really proves it. There are two different lines in here, and this is dated back to 1979. There's a red one and a black one. The black one is an index or a number that represents the situation in the tropical Pacific, El Nino and La Nina. That's the black one. So when a spike goes upward, that's an El Nino event. And when it goes downward, like here, it's a La Nina. And if it's here, it's kind of in between, in the middle. Some people call it no Nino, or La Nada. But that represents the state of the tropical Pacific. So again, El Nino, La Nina, and in between. And then the red represents the global temperature of the lower troposphere, measured from satellites. Since 1978, NASA has been measuring temperatures. They can measure it remotely from satellite. And there are two polar orbiting satellites that go around twice a day to take measurements. They're fantastic measurements. And they've been measuring it ever since then. And so that's the red line is showing, it's actually the monthly average for each month. And you notice there's a lot of up and down and warm months and cool months. But the other thing that I noticed when I saw this is how closely those two lines match up. Now, one of the other things I noticed about this is, like, let's look right here. See that? There's a black line and a red line. And right here, the black line starts to go up. And then the red line starts to go up later. So the black is in front of it. And then the black line starts to go down. And the red line goes down. And I think in every case, you'll see the black line changes first, and then the red line follows. The red line follows. So if, first of all, when I see two data sets that match up so well, it suggests to me that one of them is causing the other one to happen. There's something connecting them. And if you have two things, if you have a cause and an effect, and one of them always happens first, would you say that the cause is the one that happens first, or it happens last? First. Yeah, me too. And intuitively it makes sense because the temperature of the tropical Pacific does change, and then later on the temperature of the air changes, but it matches up beautifully. And to me this says the thing that causes global temperature in the atmosphere to change there are changes in the tropical Pacific. Now every now and then, like right here, and you can't really see it because it's on the line, but the black line went way up. There was a big El Nino in 1982 and 83, but the temperature didn't go as high. It only went to about here. And there was an even more extreme case here where we had an El Nino event. The temperatures actually went down. Well, those were due to, I believe, events known as El Chichon and Pinatubo. You know what those are? Volcanoes. Volcanoes send a lot of fly ash up into the atmosphere. They reflect sunlight. They cause global cooling. But if you consider the tropical Pacific and volcanoes, it explains pretty much every bit of the variation in the global temperature. The blues are La Niñas, and we have data about back to 1900, and there's about an equal number of reds and blues. But do you notice how many reds there are here compared to the blues? And how many blues there are here compared to the reds, and so on? What we have is a variation that lasts about 25 years where there's mostly El Niños, and about 25 years where there's mostly La Niñas. Not coincidentally, the 1980s, 1990s were a period with a lot of El Niños, and that was the heyday of the global warming scare. Temperatures have dropped or leveled off, and we're back in the mode with a lot more blue than red. So to me, it just all makes sense. It's happening again, and in another 10 or 20 years, people are going to quit talking about the coming global warming and be a lot more worried about cold. And I'm more worried about cold because it's worse for agriculture, forestry, and people. So I'm now going to just skip through all this and get all the way to the end, which is there. In my opinion, human activities do affect climate in a variety of ways. Greenhouse gases are just one parameter. I think the biggest human influence on climate is land use change. And that's because when you build a city or you put in roads or airports or things, you affect the area around it enough that the measurement stations which we use to determine weather and climate see an increase in temperature. I think that's the biggest influence. But I think greenhouse gases are one. I believe that natural variations affect climate. I think sunlight, it may be the cause of the changes in the tropical Pacific, but the reason that I think that they have a bigger effect, and I believe they do, is because they match up better with the variations that we see. That one chart, the smoking gun chart, I think to me says everything that I need to know. Therefore, I believe the effects of future changes in CO2 are likely to be modest and manageable. And I don't really think there's much we can do about it. Certainly not we as a country that's going to influence things very much, with so many other countries in the world emitting a lot more than we do. Nevertheless, I always say there's a lot of our climate that we don't understand. And if the facts change, I reserve the right to change my mind. But so far, I haven't seen it change. So, thank you.